Welcome to MetaBookNook, deep dives for curious minds. Today we're diving into a really fascinating book. It presents a profound and maybe, a bit controversial view of reality.
Definitely controversial for some.
The core idea is that your consciousness isn't just part of your life. It's actually the soul, the only creative force behind it.
Yeah, we're peeling back the layers on a text that essentially asks you, the listener, to rethink everything you believe about cause and effect.
Everything.
Pretty much. The main theme, it sounds simple, but it's radical. There are no second causes, no external forces, not luck, not fate, not other people that can impact your life outside of what's going on in your own mind, your own consciousness.
Okay, wow. I was trying to unpack that. So our mission for this deep dive is to really understand how this idea is supposed to work. We need to focus on the key concepts, right? Like I am, the nature of reality as presented here, and the practical method it gives for achieving things, which it calls the law of assumption.
Exactly. And we absolutely have to start with I am. The book defines this as, well, the self-definition of the absolute. It's that feeling of permanent awareness.
Okay, permanent awareness, like the basic sense of being.
Precisely. Think of it like the unchanging center. So it doesn't matter what roles you play, temporarily rich man, poor man, doctor, lawyer, whatever. The core awareness of being, that feeling I am, it stays the same underneath all those labels. It's the constant.
Got it. So that's the foundation.
That's the foundation. And from there, the book says this pure awareness, consciousness with a capital C, is the first cause substance, the only one.
The first cause. So if that's the starting point, then everything that comes from it.
Must also be consciousness, just, arranged differently. All its evolutions, its manifestations, they remain consciousness.
Okay, this is where it gets like really challenging to maybe accept initially. The implication is you stop blaming anything external.
That's the radical takeaway, yes. If consciousness is the only reality, then what looks like external circumstances, conditions, even physical objects? Yeah.
They're just arrangements, products of your own consciousness. You have to kind of toss out the idea that you and your environment are separate things.
Wow.
The book insists you and your world are one and the same.
Okay. To make that a bit more concrete, the book uses an analogy, right? Something about a magnet.
Yeah, it's a great one. It compares the difference between, say, someone wealthy and someone struggling. It's not a difference in the kind of mind they have,
Right.
but in the arrangement of that same mind substance.
Like magnetized versus demagnetized steel.
Exactly. The steel itself, the substance, it's identical. But in one, the particles are aligned, arranged in a certain way, giving it magnetic power. In the other, they're scattered, so no power.
So health, wealth, genius. These aren't things you create from scratch.
According to this, no. They are manifested. They show up based on the arrangement of your mind, which fundamentally is your concept of yourself, who you believe you are. Okay, so if our inner arrangement, our self-concept, dictates the outer world, then the big question is, how do we change the arrangement? How do we actually use this?
Right. And that brings us squarely to the core operating principle.
What the book calls the law of assumption.
The law of assumption, yeah.
The mechanism is straightforward, at least in theory. All events, everything that happens to you, happens as a direct result of your particular state of consciousness at that time.
So you can't have like a self-concept of being unworthy and then live in a world that treats you like royalty.
Exactly. The inner and outer have to match. So if you want to change your circumstances, you must first change your state of consciousness. Specifically, change your concept of yourself.
Okay, but hang on. Does this mean action doesn't matter? If I just assume I'm wealthy, do I literally just sit on the sofa and wait? That feels passive. Ugh, that's a common sticking point. The book argues the primary effort is internal. It's about controlling your imagination, your attention. The external actions, it says, will flow automatically, naturally, even inevitably, from the state you successfully assume internally.
So the effort is mental discipline, not physical striving.
Precisely. And the key difference here, this is really crucial, is between thinking of something and thinking from it.
Thinking of versus thinking from. Let's nail that down. Thinking of wealth. That's like looking at your bank balance.
Yeah.
Worrying about bills, maybe researching jobs.
Yes. Analyzing, observing from the outside, wanting it. That's thinking of. Thinking from wealth means, well, how would you feel? What thoughts would you have if you were already wealthy? You'd be thinking from that state of security, maybe planning differently.
Okay, so to be healthy, you need to be conscious of being healthy now, not just thinking about getting better someday.
Exactly. You assume the feeling of the wish already fulfilled. You inhabit that state internally.
Right. The method then is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And the book says the ideal state, whatever you desire, is always ready for incarnation.
Yes, like it's waiting in the wings, metaphorically speaking. But you have to provide what it calls human parentage.
Human parentage. That's an interesting phrase. What does that mean practically?
It means you have to give that ideal, which is non-physical, a vessel. You have to embody it. You give it life by feeling it's true for you right now in your body and mind, accepting it as your current reality, your natural state.
So you're taking responsibility for embodying that higher concept of yourself.
Yes. And imagination is the tool. The book calls imagination the only redemptive power capable of lifting you into that new state. Refusing to assume is rejecting the means of achieving your ideal.
Okay, so consciousness is the source, the feeling is the key. Let's talk practicals. How do you maintain that feeling? That needs discipline, right?
Yeah.
Attention.
Absolutely. Attention is the director of consciousness. And the book stresses that attention is forceful based on how narrow its focus is. It needs to be, and this is a strong word, obsessed with a single idea or sensation.
Obsessed. Wow.
Yeah, it requires deliberate, concentrated observation, which, let's be honest, is like a muscle most of us haven't really exercised much.
So how do you build that muscle? Is there like an exercise?
There is a very specific and, frankly, quite challenging one. The book suggests that every night before sleep, you try to hold your attention on the day's activities, but in reverse order.
Reverse order, like starting from getting into bed and going backwards through the whole day.
Exactly. Back through dinner, the afternoon, work, lunch, morning routine, right back to the moment you woke up.
Whoa. That sounds incredibly difficult and maybe a bit tedious.
It can be, but the purpose isn't just memory recall. It's about detaching your attention from the automatic forward flow of time and thought. It's about developing the power to consciously direct and hold your focus.
Okay, I can see the logic, building that attentional muscle. Does it say how long this takes?
It doesn't give a set timeline, no, but it emphasizes persistence. And that's the critical point for the whole law of assumption, really. It can't just be a one-off act.
So not just assuming once and then forgetting about it.
No, it has to become a maintained attitude, a persistent state. The book suggests that when desires don't manifest, even after trying to assume, it's usually because the feeling didn't become natural. The old self-concept, the old state, just felt more real, more familiar, and took over again.
Okay, naturalness. That feels important. It needs to feel like you.
Exactly. Which ties into another principle mentioned, the principle of least action. In physics, things tend to follow the path of least resistance.
Right.
The psychological version, according to the book, is mere assumption. It works by attention minus effort.
Minus effort. But we just talked about the effort of the reverse day exercise.
Good point. It's effort in controlling attention, but not effort in making it happen externally. Because, the book argues, creation is already finished. Every possibility already exists.
So you're not creating, you're selecting, shifting your awareness.
Precisely. You shift your awareness to the reality where your desire is already fulfilled. So you hurry without haste, reach the goal without effort, simply by imagining and feeling that you are already there, that you already are that which you want to be. The only work is maintaining that inner state, that feeling.
Okay. To really see how this works in practice, let's look at some of the case studies in the book, because these seem to show just how literally the external world can reflect a changed inner assumption.
Yeah, the examples are powerful. Let's start with the costume designer. She was totally convinced her producer was just rude, difficult, always finding fault.
Okay. Pretty common workplace dynamic, unfortunately.
Right. But she realized something interesting. She was constantly having these intense, angry mental arguments with him in her head, things she'd never actually say out loud.
The internal monologue.
Exactly. And according to this philosophy, those silent, secret arguments were precisely the script he was acting out for her. The book says others just echo what we whisper to them internally through our assumptions about them.
So she was basically projecting that conflict onto him.
That's the idea. So she decided to change the inner conversation. Persistently, she started imagining him congratulating her, praising her work, being appreciative.
And what happened?
His actual behavior, his outward attitude towards her, apparently did a complete 180. It miraculously reversed, as the book puts it. It shifted to match her new, persistent internal assumption about him.
Wow. Okay, that's one example. What about the penthouse story? That one sounds pretty specific.
It is. A couple desperately wanted a particular type of penthouse apartment. Very specific details, huge window, mirrored wall, a fireplace.
But the usual obstacles. Money, availability.
Exactly. Way too expensive, seemingly impossible logistics, nothing like it existed in their current affordable building. It looked hopeless from an external perspective.
So what did they do? Assume.
They did. They chose to ignore the facts. Every single night, as they fell asleep, they imagined they were already living in that penthouse. They focused on the feeling, the smell of the fireplace, the view from the window, seeing their reflection in the mirrored wall.
They persisted in that feeling.
For months, apparently. And then, completely out of the blue, they found out that a penthouse, a beautiful one, had unexpectedly become available in their current building, rent controlled.
No way.
Yes. And it matched their imagined details perfectly. The huge window, the mirrored wall, the fireplace, everything. The external circumstances somehow rearranged themselves to fit the persistently held internal vision.
It's quite a story. It suggests the how isn't our problem.
That's a core message. Don't worry about the means.
Mhm.
And there are quicker examples too, like the soldier who desperately wanted an honorable discharge.
Yeah.
He just repeatedly for 8 nights fell asleep, feeling himself back in his own bed in his New York apartment, fully embodying that discharged reality. On the 9th day, his discharge papers were approved. Even though his colonel apparently had reasons not to approve it, he signed off anyway, almost against his own judgment, it seemed.
The assumption compelled the external action.
That's the interpretation. And then there's the young boy and the collie puppy.
Ah, yes, the puppy. Parents totally against getting a dog, right?
Adamantly against it. No dogs allowed.
Yeah.
But the boy specifically wanted a collie, so he used his imagination. He visualized winning a collie puppy in a citywide essay contest. He lived in that feeling, that expectation.
And he won.
He won the contest, won the exact collie puppy he imagined. And because it was a public contest, the parents felt compelled, almost forced by the situation, to accept the dog. The external world conspired to make his assumption a reality.
These stories really drive home the idea that the inner state is causative, which brings up huge questions, doesn't it? Like free will.
Absolutely. If our consciousness dictates everything, are we just puppets of our own assumptions? Where's the choice?
Yeah, where does free will fit in?
Well, the book redefines it. It argues free will isn't about controlling external events directly. You can't really intervene effectively just by physical action, it claims.
Yeah.
Your freedom lies solely in your ability to choose your assumption. You are free to select any concept of yourself, any state of being that you desire to embody.
So the choice is purely internal, choosing the state.
That's the freedom. Once you choose and successfully assume that state, feeling it as real, the book says everything else unfolds automatically in harmony with that assumed state.
Mhm.
The world just conforms. You can intervene later by changing your assumption again, but not by fighting the external reflection.
Which means persistence in the chosen assumption is paramount.
Exactly. Because the world will keep reflecting back to you whatever state you are predominantly occupying internally.
This also completely reframes faith, doesn't it? It's not just hoping or believing in something.
Right. It's not vague hope. The book defines faith as the awareness of the reality of that which you assume. It's a deep inner knowing, a conviction that your desire is real right now, even if your senses don't confirm it yet.
So a lack of faith isn't some kind of moral failing.
No, it's simply disbelief in the present reality of your desire.
Right.
And that disbelief, that dominant feeling of lack, is itself an assumption that then gets mirrored externally, leading to failure to achieve the positive aim.
You have to endure in the feeling, seeing him who is invisible, as the book quotes, persisting until the assumed state feels more natural than the old one.
Precisely, until it becomes your default reality.
So wrapping this up, the book concludes that we are literally creating our destiny moment by moment through our assumptions. And it adds a sort of ethical dimension too, right? About love.
Yes, it posits that your creator, the fundamental I am or consciousness, wouldn't have brought you into being if it didn't love you. Therefore, the highest form of reverence, the greatest way to honor that source,
Is to assume the best for yourself.
and for others, to consciously choose the highest, noblest, happiest concepts you can imagine, both for yourself and when you think of other people. It demands a constant internal vigilance and refinement.
It really places the responsibility and the power squarely within.
It does. It suggests your destiny is this perpetual journey of rising to higher and higher states of consciousness, and by doing so, bringing more of creation's infinite potential into manifestation. And that journey, as we've explored, starts and ends with disciplined imagination and sustained attention.
Well, we certainly hope this deep dive into the power of awareness has given you all much to think about. It's definitely a compelling and challenging argument that the most significant change we can ever make is internal within our own concept of self.
Remember, the only limits suggested here are those imposed by an uncontrolled imagination and a failure to sustain attention on the feeling, the reality of the wish fulfilled.
You can find links to purchase this book and learn more about this whole philosophy right there in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in to MetaBookNook.
Join us next time for another deep dive into a work that challenges how we perceive the world.